Hello, hello. I'm here with Dani Elliott, who is a singer-songwriter and has a new record coming out in August, right? August 11th, I believe?
New single.
Single, okay,
Yes.
cool. I thought it was a full
Yeah.
EP, but new single?
We put out an EP in May,
Mm-hmm.
and then the new single, I think, we're looking at either the second or third week in August.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet. But
Nice.
we're very chill.
It sounds like it.
That's what happens when you're independent. You're
Yes.
like, will I or won't I release something?
Nobody has the whip.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we definitely want to talk about that. And I've known Dan, how long have we known each other? Probably 6-7 years?
At least, yeah. Yep.
Danny lived in New York. How long were you in New York City?
Almost 10 years.
Wow, 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's longer than I did.
Lord, it was longer than I should have. That's.
I hear that a lot these days.
Well, it's funny, around like the 7-year mark, I started touring more. And so I started being able to get out of the city more and started seeing that like other people were able to live really full, happy, well-rounded, productive lives outside of New York, and that you didn't have to be in New York to be successful. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, maybe they're onto something. Maybe I too should investigate this lifestyle. And then I met my husband, and I was like, oh, now I have to stay a little longer. So.
Were you, I mean, it's funny you say that because I think that's what everybody in New York does. They move to New York to get to a place where they travel outside of New York all the time, but make New York their home.
Right.
Because you can't afford to live there as a musician unless you're touring.
Totally.
Yeah, or luck into something else.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I was just like Airbnb-ing my apartment out
Nice.
whenever I was on the road, like very illegally, but.
I was going to say, that's early. That's early Airbnb.
Oh, I was a very early
adopter.
Airbnb adopter. You know that I have an entrepreneurial spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I found all these like real janky ways to hide keys places for people to find, and like had neighbors in on it and stuff. And like, yeah, we made it work.
Did you have to cut people in? Because that's the way New York works. Like 10% here, 5% there?
You know what? I actually didn't.
Okay.
But that is totally the way New York works. But I also was like super cheap at the time and was like, you will help me. They were like, I'm scared of you, yes.
That's a way to go about it.
Right. Just strong arm them into helping me make money for no profit. I think I probably played the like, I'm a really broke musician, please help me be able to stay in this apartment angle more likely. But yeah.
You know, it's funny, as a musician, you can definitely, there are certain things you can get away with by playing that card, because there is an element of people think, wow, that's really cool, and I feel really bad for you.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, it's like a noble pursuit. You're like, no, it's not. It's completely selfish.
Yeah,
like, but I'm
exactly.
trying to make you think it's noble.
But I'll do my best to convince you.
Yeah.
Totally. So, were you always, obviously you met Matt and stayed a little longer, and what, were you always thinking about Nashville, or was there other places, like LA
Nashville
probably?
was not even on my radar.
Really?
At all. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Connecticut, and so you're like, I will live my life in New England or like the North or coastal city or Europe. Those were like the options. And yeah, when I had started
I share your affinity for the ocean,
right.
By the way, yes.
I
Sorry
mean,
to interrupt.
No,
Yes.
I love Nashville, but being landlocked definitely
yeah.
messes with my head. And luckily, there's so many beautiful lakes around here. You can kind of trick yourself into thinking like you're close to water, open water. But yeah, I mean, after being in New York for like 6 or 7 years, I had been touring with Amos Lee, and the band. We had all become like really great friends, and some of the guys in the band were like, you should move to Philly. And I was like, that would be cool because it's more chill than New York, but it's still really close to New York. It's like an easy train ride away. I could still go in to work, but like cost of living's a little less. It's just way more relaxed. And I had actually like very casually started to like consider maybe that, but then I also had a lot of friends and colleagues in LA because I was doing a lot of backup singing at the time, so I thought maybe LA. But yeah, then when Matt and I got together, and I had started talking to him about wanting to leave, we were just kind of, throwing out these different cities. And we had a friend who had moved to Nashville, and we were like, well, why don't we go to his family's place who was in Mississippi at the time, and then we'll drive up to Nashville like for New Year's after we spend Christmas there. And we were here for like 5 days, and we were like, let's do it. If we hate it, we can always leave, but it's so cheap at the time, 5 years ago. Right. It's so cheap, like it's not like it's gonna break us to move here. And so we like left our $1,600 a month, 1-bedroom tiny apartment deep in the heart of Brooklyn, moved to like the hippest neighborhood in Nashville, and paid like half the price for a 3-bedroom house. And we were like, we are living large. So Nashville totally took me by surprise. Like it really wasn't on my radar, and but I'm so glad that Matt suggested it, and you know, here we are 5 years later.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's great. And I remember I just was reading one of your interviews where you were talking about how the culture in the city, and we were literally just talking about it because I know I'm on a different side of town than you guys, but people are moving from all over the place and bringing all of that culture and food and everything. It's beautiful. It's
great. I love it. I mean, when we first moved here, I did freak out a little bit and was like, oh my God, did we make a huge mistake? Like, it's so quiet.
Yeah.
There's, at the time, you know, there were like way less options, you know, as far as like food was concerned, because we're like really big into eating a lot. And you know, just like culturally, just like, you know, you have so many different options for things to do in New York, like going to see dance, going to different art galleries, theater, music, like, you know, whatever is available to you. So it's been cool to see all these different people moving here and seeing how it's just like the scene has blossomed in every single way. And that's been really exciting to see kind of unfold.
Yeah, the culture of it's just begun in the city for sure. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about how much of a badass you are, because I know I want to focus. I wanted to talk definitely about the record, because I know that's kind of where your head is at, and I want to talk about the transition of your badassness in another field or another area of the industry to what you're doing now. But when we had dinner with you and Matt, we were talking about that. There's a line in the my guilty pleasure when I was running for a long time was the Ed Sheeran record, where he's Wembley Stadium, crowds 240,000. I actually wrote it down because I wanted to say it and I remember it. But you were at that show in the audience, and not only that, is you played with Miley at that Wembley Stadium show that day. Yeah, I had to nerd out for a second because I've heard that line so many times. I'm like, damn, Dani was there. That's
it was
cool.
Pretty crazy. It was definitely a career highlight for sure. I think it's probably the biggest audience to this day I've ever been able to sing in front of, for sure. But I was just so impressed with the production element of what it takes to put on a show like that. And like, you know, we had talked about like how they set up the stages, and it's like this big screen separating 2 stages, and while one like band is playing or an artist is playing, there's another one getting set up behind it, and then they literally just like hit a button and the whole thing rotates and they do it all over again. And it's just like the organization that goes into that, and the amount of people working behind the scenes to pull off this seamless show with some of the biggest artists in the world is like mind-blowing. So that was just cool to experience that. And I
got a little taste of that when I did Farm Aid last year. And it was the same thing, where it wasn't a turning stage, but it was kind of, they would move forward like 3 at a time, and they would lift and we'd play, and then, you know, Dave Matthews would come out, and then Willie would come out, and it would, I mean, you're standing back there and you have no place where you don't know where you're supposed to be standing because you're just in the way.
You're like, how do I make myself smallest?
Yes. Can I dangle from the ceiling? And then just fall into place?
Yes.
So that was with Miley, and then obviously you've toured with Amos, Sheryl Crow. What are some of the other background kind of? So this is in a background situation, singing.
Sure. MIA was my first gig I ever had, and that was very short-lived. But that was my first backing gig, and then my mentor started booking me on like TV shows in New York, mainly Jimmy Fallon. And so I got to sing with Aaron Neville. It was like my first ever TV thing, and the Roots were, are the house band. So
they backed Aaron?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So I got to play with the Roots for
Wow.
that. And then the second time I did it was with Amos, and the Roots also played for that. So I got to play with them and him, and that's how I ended up touring with Amos, was through, we met on Fallon. He was like, hey, I'm looking for a BGV to come out with me. Like, are you free this summer? And I was like, hell yeah.
Of course.
So, and then just have been able to do like different TV shows with the various artists that I've played with. The last one I was touring with was Alan Stone, so we got to do like a lot of cool like West Coast TV stuff, and it was an awesome career to have for sure. Like being able to play with all those people and experience like so many different things, and also like have a really nice range and genre to play as well, from like the sort of hip hop arty kind of thing MIA was doing to like the sort of folk soul Americana thing Amos was doing, to the just amazingness that is Sheryl, to like crazy pop world that is Miley, to soul that is Alan. Like it's really cool to be able to have a career that keeps you interested.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So would you, just let's live in that world for just a second, because I know that there are people that would aspire to have a career like that.
Sure.
And sing in front of 250,000 people. As a background singer, as being the first background singer that I've talked to side musicians, horn players, rhythm people. But how would you, I guess, maybe give me a couple things a couple of tips that you have learned being a background singer on the road, and kind of things that, and I toured with, with 3 background singers for 2 years as well, and everybody lived in harmony and peace, and it was a beautiful thing. And obviously there's the male-female dynamic, which changes things as well.
Sure.
I think it would be difficult at times to be a female on the road because you're surrounded by men all the time.
Yeah.
And there's the element of having space to get ready and do all. Guys just throw stuff in their hair and put on jackets and they're good to go.
So jealous.
So, yeah, and you
not
need
that women can't do that either, but
True.
I'm not that woman.
Yeah. Unfortunately, society has expectations, and that's your role. Your role is to be up there and have expectations, and that's what you're getting paid for. Not only your obviously, we had to wear suits too, so it's fine, but it's just a thing.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that, like, fitting in into a touring environment, as a singer and as kind of a person that's different than somebody I think singers and players are different, but it's an interesting dynamic. My sister and I would always joke growing up, the singers would always be a different element of the band that wouldn't fit with a player, and that juxtaposition exists, and that dichotomy exists in certain people's heads. But how do you, because you're brilliant at circumventing that. You're brilliant at being this get along with everybody personality. And what are some of the things that you learned about that, being on the road and having just to kind of be in that environment?
I think I have my parents to thank for like kind of inadvertently prepping me for that lifestyle, and that like both of my parents were in leadership in our church growing up, and so my dad was an elder and my mom was basically like elder adjacent, and they would do a lot of like counseling for people, and we were constantly in different people's spaces who had different personalities, who were coming from different backgrounds. And my dad also was an artist in like the 70s and was signed to Columbia.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It's very familiar with the whole like road life. And I think he had always kind of been grooming me for that in a way. And so I think, just being able to be exposed to different types of people, I think, is a really great way of preparing you to be a touring musician, because you encounter like every possible personality type, and learning how to manage your place within that, and like what you need to take on and what you don't need to take on, as far as like the energy people might be throwing at you, what energy you should or should not be contributing to a situation is super important. And not that I've like conducted myself perfectly because I'm human, but
to do all that, I mean, you have to have a certain element for sure.
Totally. Yeah. And I think like if you can remember that, you know, hopefully I've been very lucky in that like every single band I have been in, I have mostly really enjoyed the company of every single person that has been in that band. I hear a lot of horror stories from people, and I feel so blessed that honestly, I'm not saying that to like blow smoke up anyone's ass. Like I truly, like if anybody I have ever played with was in town and called me, I do my best to like make time to see them, because you know you get so close, like you're like family, which can also lead to a lot of like, you know, stupid little fights and stuff that you have with family members. But I think ultimately, if you can remember that like your friends, your colleagues, you want to be able to work together in the future and not doing anything to like jeopardize that. And you know, if bringing like peace to an environment and like, you know, joy and hilarity and like lightning.
Yeah, going with the flow.
Yeah, going with the flow is paramount, I think. Like if you're
but there has to be an element of going with the flow, but not allowing it to be too far. Because I've seen that happen too, where it's, you know, and again, to do the male-female thing with a bunch of boys saying things, and you kind of look at the dude and you're like, that's not really appropriate. Because,
well, then you call them out.
You call them out, yeah.
Like
so
I've had to do that, lovingly, because, you know, ultimately, again, like I've never really been in like a very chauvinistic environment, which I feel so lucky. But, you know, like I do, you know, I had this one experience. I was touring in Japan and with this Japanese artist, and I was out with the guys that night. We had gone to see a show, and I was probably the youngest youngest woman in the band by a solid 20 years. And so they had all kind of become my like uncle type, you know, family members. But you know, one of them had a little too much to drink and like slapped my butt. And I immediately called him out on it. And I was like, that's not professional. It's not cool. I know that you don't see me in that way. And I think this was a misstep on your part. And he immediately apologized and was like, I'm so sorry. I don't even know why I did that. But it's like a conversation, like trying to use those things as like an opportunity to like remind someone that like, yeah, we're close, yeah, we're friends, but like there are definitely lines that don't need to be crossed here. And you know, that was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But yeah, there's definitely like things that get said in passing that I think, you know, you can find ways to enlighten people as to like what it's like to be a woman on the road, and like the struggles that go along with that. And, you know, like if people call you high maintenance, you're like, well, you try changing your tampon in a bathroom bus with like 10 guys around. You try, you know, and so I think like enlightening people to the struggle that is like being a woman and traveling like and being outnumbered, while not playing a victim, is, you know, is important.
Yeah, it takes a special person for sure.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily like a special thing. It's just like, you know, stand up for yourself where it's appropriate, but don't try and make everything about like, we're different. I'm a woman. I have needs, you know? Well,
I mean, the differences that I saw, and I think the reason why I would say there is a difference is because I think there are certain responsibilities in the experiences that I've had in a background singer situation that don't exist for a side, like a guitar player or saxophone player. And those things, I think it's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my analysis of the situation, but the artist is a singer. And you are a singer. And so I'm a saxophone player. So obviously you're going to have that in common with the artist. And if the artist is female, you have that in common with the artist. And I would also see interesting things happen where your responsibilities would go way above and beyond what happens on stage, because I mean, all famous artists are incredibly insecure, and they need support at certain times to make themselves feel good and feel confident. And that's literally what you're doing on stage. You're singing behind their voice to make them feel more powerful and stronger. Did you find that a lot of that happened off stage as well, where it would be kind of, they would come to you, and I mean, they would come to you more than they would come to their drummer and be like, hey, like, let's, like, you have more of an intimate relationship.
Sure.
Does that do you feel like there's more responsibility for a background singer to on the road and to do that comparatively to like a drummer or a bass player?
That's such a good question, because I had never even really thought about that before. I mean, honestly, again, I think like the artists that I've been lucky to work with, I haven't really felt like I never really felt like I needed to really coddle them in any way. And, you know, I think MIA was like super independent and like wasn't necessarily looking to like get validation from anyone. So we had like a very perfunctory sort of relationship. You know, that's the only one I can think of that I was like the most distant from.
Yeah.
But everyone else, you know, we were, I never felt like I needed to hold people's hands, but I've heard stories of
Absolutely.
that for sure. And I do think there is something to you sharing an instrument that does make you feel closer, you know, and especially if you're singing and you're working out harmonies and stuff, like there's something very intimate
about that, yeah,
to that, for sure, that does unite you in a way, hopefully. That is really beautiful. But what did you ask me?
And I think, I mean, the road is incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Especially for an artist. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the times they're in a bus by themselves.
Totally.
And the first people they're going to reach to is family. And if family's not there, maybe their manager. And if the manager's not there, I mean, it's the next most intimate person. And it's the person that's trying to match their voice.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. I think, like, I always try to really read the room in terms of like, does this person seem like they want me here right now, or do they just need some space? Or I never wanted to assume that because we shared an instrument and that kind of automatically made us a little closer, that like I would have privileges that other band members didn't. I do feel like I was able to share different experiences than the rest of the people in the band because, you know, we shared an instrument. Like, for example, Sheryl took Nayana, Holly, and I to the Martin Luther King Jr. monument dedication and didn't take the rest of the band because they were going to have a house band, but she was like, you know, I want you guys to be able to experience this, and I want to have like my girls with me. And that was like an incredible experience, and like so humbling that she would let us be a part of that with her, and that she wanted us there with her. And then, you know, when I sang with Alan, Jessica Childress, Al and I were all like, we became very close because we would do a lot of promo together, just the three of us, where he would be playing guitar and we would be doing backing vocals, and so we were together a lot more than the rest of the band. So I think like those things can lead to you being closer, you know, giving you more opportunities to have a more of an intimate relationship with the artist. But again, I think I was always afraid that like I was invading their space, so I always tried to be as like in the back until you made it very clear you needed me to, like,
so it was
to
very
be a part of
natural.
it.
I mean, yeah. Because I mean, you could force yourself upon them, imagine, and be like, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this.
And I've seen people do that, and it doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
So it's like, read the room, you know, kind of see where you're needed and where you're not, and be cool with that. Don't take it personally. I had a really hard time when I first started doing backing vocals. Like if you know, the artist didn't necessarily like address me or didn't want me or, you know, the other singers to like be around, I would be like, oh my God, like, did I do something wrong? But then you just realize like it's so exhausting to read people's minds, and as long as you're showing up and doing the best job that you can do, that's all you can do, you know. So yeah, but yeah, that's such a insightful observation.
Well, I mean, there are times where I would look at that, and my personality is not to coddle, so I would be terrible at it.
I mean, same. I'm also not
no,
naturally like.
But I think that there's
hand-holder.
an element to you of the times that I've seen where you're very good at making people feel comfortable, and that's all you need.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not coddling, and making somebody comfortable is very different. So I think I'm using the wrong term, because coddling is that's not the right term.
Yeah.
But making somebody feel comfortable is important.
Yeah.
And some people have that naturally, and I think you definitely have that. There are times where I could do that, but it takes something out of me.
Sure.
So I would watch that happen in certain situations, and I'm like, man, I'm so thankful that I play saxophone, and I can go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can go have a drink on the crew bus, like
Totally.
that, like, or stuff like that.
Totally.
Like those moments where I'm glad that I'm just the side guy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any expectations. And I have another friend that toured with another big artist as a background singer for many, many years, and that particular artist was incredibly isolated and got famous really quickly, and was very, very green, and was reaching out for whatever she could
Sure,
find,
yeah.
and she gravitated to this person and this singer, and they would do everything together.
Yeah.
And then when the tour was over, like they never spoke, and then this person would come in and look at this singer, and like she didn't even know her. It's just because she needed her for that time. So there's that side of it too.
That's
you know?
definitely a thing, and I've definitely experienced that with different artists, but I've actually more so experienced it with band members, and I've been guilty of it too, in that like you spend all of this really intense time together. Like it's not like any other job, right? Like you're together 24 hours a day.
It's a forced family. For
Yeah,
sure.
and if it's pop stuff, it's like you're out for like 3 months straight with 0 breaks, you know, and so you're just together all the time. So then when that leg is over, you just need a minute to just be on your own. And it's really easy to fall into just like not being as connected, because you get used to then being on your own. So then reestablishing that connection can become difficult, or like forced, or, you know, and
my mom said something interesting to me when I was a child. When I would go away, and I would have like do musical things in high school, and have these great experiences over 5 days. And you know,
and those will bond you. It's like doing theater as a teenager.
Yes.
Oh my God, you think you're gonna know you're gonna be besties for the rest of your life.
Yes.
It's so intense. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
but it's like it's an intense experience. Or like those camps and stuff.
Yeah, and you're surrounded by people that feel the same way that you feel, and because when you're in high school, it's like everybody's kind of doing different things.
Yeah, and everybody has so much hope.
So
too,
much hope.
You know, you're like, oh, you don't know what's coming.
And it's good that you don't know what's coming.
It's good that you don't know, yes. But please just be in this moment now and think that everything's going to be beautiful forever.
Yes. And put that in a bottle.
Yes.
And when you get into your 30s, drink that bottle.
Just drink it every day.
Yeah.
Just IV it, you know.
Yeah, get somebody to replicate it and sell it in a pill,
Yes.
and you'll be a bazillionaire.
Yes.
But so she would always, I'd come home, and, you know, we all have a tendency as creative beings, which I really want to dive into with you, but to have ups and downs.
Oh, yeah.
And that sounds like a down, and I understand that feeling. And I always resort back to what she said. She said, well, Tyler, that's not reality. And it would make me feel terrible. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that can't be real? Like, I can't live that? And I've always carried that with me, and I know exactly the feeling. I have done one tour where I was gone for months at a time. But most of my touring, which is very different than yours, because it's Nashville touring where you're gone on the weekends.
It's just so nice.
It is nice. And the recovery time is less. So to me, I know myself, and I know the way that it would work with me was, if I go out there, I'm performing 24 hours a day. So you're not only performing when you're on stage, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
The rest of it is you have to be around people that may not share your views, may not share your whatever, and you have to be insulated inside of yourself. And when you get home, it takes me a day. My Mondays after the weekend, I would be a mess. I
Yeah.
would be a mess on the Wednesday before bus call at midnight. I would be a different human being. And then I'd be a mess
Just
on
like
Mondays.
from the anxiety of like
Of having to
looking
get on
forward
that
to
bus.
it. Yeah.
Yep, and prepping my mind and prepping. I couldn't be creative. I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything positive. I'd have to do tangible things that day. That would be like the day to cut the lawn.
Yep.
Because I couldn't do anything else. To the point where I said to myself in this year, I'm like, okay, so if my Wednesday's wrecked and my Monday's wrecked, and my Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are for work, that's a 5-day situation,
Yeah.
and I'm wrecked. And now if I look at how much that pays comparatively to how much I'm wrecked and how much I'm performing,
And you only have Tuesday to be
you only
creative.
have Tuesday to be creative, I said if I have to take that financial risk, I'm going to try this to see if that's going to work.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because I know there's a lot of people, we know a lot of touring musicians, and it almost is like, I wouldn't call it a drug, because it's not a drug as far as, it's a drug in the sense that you're up on stage in front of thousands of people, but it's also a you get off the road, because I know for you were with Miley, and then Miley ended, and you're kind of like, okay. And a typical touring musician would be like, okay, what's next? I got to get back out. I got to get back out. And when that doesn't come, and that fear, like I feel like that's where you're kind of in a place now where you're letting go of the fear of what's coming next, and you're diving into your next aspect of your life. Yeah. But it's scary.
It's terrifying.
Terrifying.
God, you just brought up so many good points. The whole recovery time thing and how much of your mental energy is spent outside of performing while you're on the road is a real thing. I had always been releasing my own projects throughout my 20s, like in between touring, because I'm like self-funded. Like my parents helped me pay for some of my projects, but then like, out of like, blind love for me. But a lot of my funding came from like, being a waitress in between tours and saving that money to pay for session time or
You're a hustler.
Yeah, or you try and you gotta be, right? Like no one's gonna work for you the way you will work for you.
That's a very beautiful statement.
It's true. And, and then like going out on the road and saving that money to put towards records and, all the things that go into doing that. But, I thought Miley's a great example of this. I was like, okay, this is going to be a life-changing gig for me financially. I'm going to work the shit out of this, do the best job I can possibly do. So, hopefully if anything else comes down the line, she'll want to call me. If she doesn't, again, you can't take it personally because like personnel changes constantly and sometimes it has nothing to do with your ability. It's like, my hair's curly. Like literally.
I know.
That has happened. But I was like, okay, the great thing is I don't have lobby call till 3 or 4 typically. I am going to hit GarageBand like on the daily. I brought my guitar out on a leg and I had all these like grand plans of just writing a ton of music because I had all of this quote unquote free time, and didn't write one song that I liked the whole time I was with her because your brain is so caught up in like, I want to do the best job possible. You're getting new music pretty frequently. It's not like once you're on that tour and that set, that's it. And
interesting. So it changed a lot.
Yeah, Miley's super creative, and she, there's like this acoustic set that would happen in the middle of the show, and she'd constantly be wanting to switch that up. So it's like the main stage show is set because there's like lighting, choreography, graphics, things like that are more difficult to change. But the acoustic set was constantly changing. So, we would get a song like that day that she'd want to do that night, and we would show up to sound check and like run it a couple times, and then that's it. So you have to do a lot of the back end work on your own to make sure you're coming in like knowing those parts, and just the stress of like, I love that, like I love being needed in that way and having that put on me to have to like show up and execute a job. But there is all the stress that goes into like, oh my God, if I don't do this well, I can so easily be replaced. There's a million girls behind me waiting for a gig like this, ready, like doing all the work I had been doing like for years to try and get a job like that. And so it's like, if I show up and I'm not ready and I'm not executing things well, it's gone. Yeah. So that takes up so much of your energy that it is really difficult to be creative. So trying to balance like your creative mind with your professional mind is super difficult. And then I think after that tour ended, I had started to entertain leaving backing vocals to really fully pursue doing my own project and writing. And then Alan called me a few months later, and I was like, well, we're going to hit pause because I have to sing with this man.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Like, there's no way I'm saying no to this. So then I did that for most of 2015, and it was at the end of that I was like, I have to pull the plug because there's so many artists I would love to sing with, and I'm just going to keep saying yes because it feels good to work. It feels good to be needed. And to work in a field that is musical and you're making your money playing music, like and traveling, like that's the dream, you know? Yeah. Why would you stop doing that? But I think I just got to a place where I knew that I had more to offer than just my physical voice. You know, I like to think that I have like a mental voice that I want to share as well, that and perspective that I want to share that isn't just through me singing, it's through writing. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that if my mind was constantly consumed with like being on the road. So yeah, I think like since the end of 2015, I've really been in that like transitional space of, you know, all of the ups and downs that come along with you being the only person that's in charge of like your creative destiny and professional destiny and like, you know, all the things that entails. But
well, there's a lot of...
I don't know if I like really answered your question.
I mean, I think that, that's interesting. Well, going back, rewinding to your words of saying that you didn't write a song that you liked, I totally understand because if you're doing your job right, that makes total sense because you're on call waiting for how to make sure that 120 minutes that evening goes as well as that 120 minutes can go. And
that's the thing, like when you're on the road, you're not out on the road for you. You're out for someone else. And so like if you're out on the road for you, you aren't doing the job right.
Yeah.
And it's selfish of you to think that like you being on the road is for you, and that like it's not. Like you got hired because they think you're the best person for the job at that time, and you need to show up and be fully present. And if you're not doing that because you're in this like creative crises and you're like, but I'm not writing the songs I want to write, it's like I just had to stop writing because I was like, I'm frustrated and I don't want this to affect like how I'm performing and how I'm like interacting with my bandmates. And you know, like you are out for someone else. So
I think, I mean, you and I share that spirit of, I have all this time during the day. What can I do to better myself? And I mean, I think the way that it manifested in me, and I got really lucky because I was able to do a lot of horn tracking on the road, including that Kirk Franklin record that won a Grammy. I remember I did it in an RV. And I was standing in the bathroom, and the laptop was on the sink, and my Apogee interface was on the toilet,
I love that
and the microphone was in the bedroom, and it was a rodeo, and I had to wait for the cows to go past. And it worked, and it won a Grammy.
But I mean, that's the thing though, right? It's like people get so precious about the creative process or the recording process. And it's like, I'm about to release a single next month that I did with this awesome producer out of LA named Verscazzi. And we did it on a mic. There wasn't even a pop filter on it. It was like just, you know, against like a glass door. Like there was no sound, and it's like a great vocal capture. And it's like, if the vibe is right and you're executing the thing, then
that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's really all that matters. And like, you have a Grammy to prove it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and it's going back to the reason that it worked for me to do those things. I think I made we did a 6-week run with Martina, and we went out to West Coast, up to Canada, and on that 6-week run, I think I did 24 or 25 songs for like 15 records. But it was so easy for me because the arranger had played the part that I was supposed to play. So I wasn't being creative.
Yeah.
I was just regurgitating his creativity. So I had an outlet and it was beautiful. And I was like, man, this is so easy because I can just, he plays and I just go and it's like, I'm done. I'm good, you know? That, and then also the idea of just practicing. I mean, practicing scales, getting better on the instrument. I think those... But if I have brought a guitar and tried to do that as well, and I totally understand, like, you can't get to that place. But if you can do those kind of, they're not tasks that are meaningless or whatever. They're still bettering. But I think I did that subconsciously, where I tried that and I was like, oh, this didn't work. But I didn't actually think about it not working. I just immediately switched gears, probably because that's the way that my career was going at the time, where I was like, okay, well, this is next.
Yeah.
And I got lucky because I can take my days up now and I can do something productive that's going to build for what I want to do next. But I think finding those things, I mean, and running too, is a huge, like bettering your body and being healthy.
Oh God, I was in the best shape of my life. Like, I get in great shape when I'm on the road.
Me too.
Because I exercise way more than I do at home for my mind.
Absolutely. And you have to.
Yeah. And also, you just don't want to look like shit on stage. Sure. You're like, oh, I felt my stomach jiggle when I walked too hard in front of thousands of people.
Catering is a bad thing sometimes.
It totally can be. Yeah. It totally can be. So yeah, exercising is a great way to take up your time during the day, but it's like so not realistic at home. I'm like, I don't have an hour and a half to work out at home. That's ridiculous.
And then go to the hotel and take a nice leisurely shower, watch some TV, practice for a bit.
Totally.
I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in that, and your food is there for you 3 times a day.
So that's like more money you can save too, because you're not having to pay for food. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah. There's no denying it's awesome. Like, you know, and we've both been very lucky to
incredibly lucky.
You know, I mean, I don't like to give full credit to luck. I think that we had been working to prepare ourselves, and when the opportunity presented itself, we were ready. Yeah. You know, and maybe that is partially luck. But yeah, I think we both were very blessed to have like those types of experiences. Yeah,
and I mean, I'm sure you've had these too, but there are some things that I got to do on the road, specifically with Martina, that I'll never experience again. Like a VIP wine tour at Camus Vineyards, and like rolling down with the horse, like things. Amazing. like an 11-piece mariachi band and a catered lunch, like as much Camus wine at $140 a bottle as you could drink. I mean, it's like I'm never going to experience that.
No.
So you just enjoy it in the moment.
Totally.
And you're like, I am so lucky to be here. And not only that, but how lucky was I to have an artist that would share that with us first of all, because they don't need to do that.
No, I mean, again, like every artist I've worked with the exception of MIA, has been so generous and like just so, let me take you guys out to dinner. Like nice dinners.
Yes. Like, we had so many.
Like Sheryl got us a cabana in Maui for us all to like hang out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just so generous and just, I mean, but it is difficult to step away from that. I mean, it like you said, it's not necessarily a drug, but there's an addictive quality to it. And I was just talking with Matt about this yesterday, and like my transition of like being here for the longest stretch I've been in one place ever, and how hard that has been to not be experiencing new things on a regular basis, experiencing new places and new people. And I love doing that. I love getting out of my comfort zone and going to a place where English isn't the first language, or, you know, just eating food I've never tried before, smelling smells I've never smelled before, like meeting new people to work with, and like, you know, navigating those relationships is really interesting to me. And I think it's always an opportunity to grow. And like, when you are mostly working with yourself a lot, or, you know, the opportunities I get to co-write, that's just for like a few hours on a day. Like, you know, you don't have that built-in community and family that you get to share experiences with. And like, I think that transition is super rough for sure. And especially when it's like of your own choosing. Like I decided to take myself out of that. And there have been many times where I've been like, you're an idiot. Like, why did you do this to yourself? You could be out traveling, making money, like seeing your friends, like, you know, working with your friends. And I just keep reminding myself that the ability to be my own boss and be in control of my time and my space and what I'm making is what I really want to focus on right now. And that is priceless. And that if I can travel with my own money, if I can play music because it's my music, like that feeling is going to be priceless, you know? So, and that will feel better than anything that I've ever done because I've been able to create it, you know, on my own. So I don't know if that's delusional, but we'll see.
Well, no, it's not.
It pans out, but
it's not. And I think that you and I share a certain element of that. I mean, obviously, you're much further advanced in your art career in comparison, but it's. I understand that, and I think what happens if I could look at the beautiful side of what you just said, because I understand that side of it too. I'm like, man, I miss that too. I miss my thing that I miss the most about the road is waking up in a new city and putting on running shoes and finding a route. Or route, depending on how you want to say it, and just going for 7 or 8 miles. I mean, that is one of the most
things you get to discover, and
it's great.
Yeah, I remember I was in was it Wales or somewhere in the UK with this band Wheatus that I used to work with.
I remember that.
They did Teenage Dirtbag,
yes.
and that was my first time touring outside the country, and so I would run to like kind of get lost on purpose and just discover things. And there was this church I came across. It's like the 5th largest church in Europe. And it just like revealed itself when I came over this hill. And it was like this magical moment. And it was so cool. And it's like, when are you going to do that in Nashville? Like discovering like this massive church that's been around for hundreds of years. Like America's not that old, you know? It's like, yeah, being able to experience things like that on your own, which there's something really special to that. But then also like with your friends too, like for the first time when you're, you know, with your bandmates and stuff, there's something really beautiful about that I also miss as well.
Here's to play the other side of that. Here's where the conclusion that I've come to, and this could be right or wrong, but I think this is a conclusion that has brought me peace, and peace of turning down stuff to experience those things.
Because I do get
impart your wisdom. I do get those calls, and I mean they're not Miley Cyrus calls, but I get those calls, and it's like saying no is hard.
It's really hard
because that's a guaranteed income.
Yeah.
So here's where I found the peace is I think my views on touring and being out there is, I've always said this. I said, if you've been on tour most of your life, you have a touring age and you have a real age. And the touring age is much younger than your real age because you haven't experienced reality. And I think what happens is when you're on tour is everything that you experience that is beautiful is on the surface level. And it's exactly the way that you just explained it, and the way that I look at it too is you're always having new experiences that are outside of your body. You're having friends that are outside of your body. You're meeting new people outside of your body. And these people and these things and these places outside of your body are distracting you from what's going on inside of your body.
Ooh.
So I think that when you get off the road and you make that decision that you are going to stay home, you're going to engage in that. Now what you're doing is you're starting to dig out things in your body that you haven't dealt with.
And there's a lot. It gets heavy real quick.
Yeah. So what you do is, here's the beauty in that, to me, and just my opinion, is if you can find those new experiences within yourself by engaging more within who you are and what you want to say, that will be even as you've just stated, if I can do that on the road, that would be the dream, because you've engaged those things, you've created those things, and now you're doing that because you've engaged them and they're yours, and you're meeting new people and you're traveling. That's the dream, obviously for you. I don't know if that would be the dream for me, but engaging with whatever is inside of yourself to the point where your going to Japan is you digging into a relationship you had in your 20s that creates a song that you put effort into and get deep inside of and release, and that little beautiful butterfly now can fly away, and you've dealt with that, and you've dealt with that situation, and you've captured it. And I always like to say that with music, that's my favorite thing to look at. It's like you're capturing moments. Those moments are going to leave, but if you can capture that moment, you'll always have that moment, beautiful or difficult. And I think there's beauty in the difficulty of those moments. So I would say that the beautiful, this is the conclusion that I've come to in turning work down like that, is I am currently in a state where I want to control my destiny, I want to control my travel, and I want to control what's inside of me so that I can not be distracted by a job, not be distracted by new experiences, because I have enough experiences now in my soul that I can pull from to create that beauty that will suffice and not only replace what I would miss on the road, because that's almost like the McDonald's of those experiences. I want to go get like a steak, you know, like I want
on a prime cut.
I want the filet mignon, you know? And I think when we get to the age that we're at, it's like we've done that. We know what that's like.
Yeah.
We can always go back. It's not that difficult. So why not try this for a little while?
Yeah. That is such an eloquent way of putting that. I couldn't agree more. That's totally the case.
Well, I know you've been struggling with it, and we've had that conversation the other day over dinner, and I've thought a lot about it because I care about you, and I've thought about a lot. Like Matt brought up, you know, that you were kind of going through this thing where you're just not sure about what you're doing as an artist, and I mean I feel that, and I try to. We all have different goals, but it's not any different that, like, whether you want to write a book or whether you want to like just be creative in general. You take that choice, and that risk and that fear exists deep inside of that because you are taking a chance, you know. So I thought a lot about it, and I think I wanted to come up with words that would be good for somebody like yourself to see that beauty and see that what you're doing is difficult. But also, it's like when you first got on the road, it was difficult. I mean, you're scared. Like with MIA, you're like, oh my God, am I, like you already stated it. Am I going to get fired? Am I going to, like, that's just a different kind of fear. But then you lived in that and you achieved it and you won.
And you come to peace with it.
Exactly.
You're so right. I mean, because after the way that things ended with MIA was like super abrupt. Like she ended up going on this tour and not taking us with us, but didn't tell us we weren't going. So like, all the BGVs were like waiting for our plane tickets to come through, and the day the flight that goes, we don't have anything, and we're like, we just canceled all this work to take this tour. You know, and you're like navigating. That was like a super hard learning curve for me, to be like, wow, I have zero control in this situation. But it was so great because then, you know, after having a couple more learning curves like that, I really got to a place where I was like, it's not me. Like, this is just the industry, and if I'm going to decide to be a participant within this, I need to make peace with that. Otherwise, it's on me to be upset. Like, that's my problem, because that is just the way it is, and everybody experiences this. And it is similar when you know, end up having those inner experiences as well. And it's like, well, again, I'm not the only person that's like going through this inner turmoil of like, did I make the right decision? You know, is my art any good? Am I wasting time? Am I too old? Am I whatever? You know, ultimately, you're the person who's in charge of letting yourself feel those things. And that's not to say that they aren't valid, but there's I'm thankful to know that like I can change those feelings, you know, that I don't have to sit in that forever. And it comes in waves, and that's the thing. It's like that first year I stopped doing backing vocals, it was probably one of the darkest years of my life. And, you know, I had other friends in the industry being like, you know, like, are you sure? Like, you want to stop doing this? Like, you know, what are you doing? You know, and not in like a malicious way. I think they were just like concerned for me. Like, are you sure this is the right direction that you want to go in? You know, and I really questioned it a lot. And it's funny because then, you know, I got management, I got a publishing deal, and stuff started rolling, and I was like, oh my God, I have arrived. Like, you know, I was like, this is what I've been working towards. And this year it started kind of like falling apart again. I shouldn't say falling apart. I should say that, you know, layers have been getting slowly pulled back, and I'm getting to like, you know, it's another wave of that inner work that you were talking about, and realizing like, okay, like, is this aspect of this meant for me? Was I meant to work with these people? If not, don't see it as this like super heavy dark thing. You experienced it, it is what it is, done, you know, like learn from it, move on, sort of thing. And I think the more often you go through that, hopefully it gets like slightly easier to navigate, but it doesn't mean it's not dark, but it definitely, I think, has helped me get a little better at navigating it, you know. But
well, hearing the word, I mean, you go from hearing the word "you're fired" to hearing the word "no."
Yeah.
And I mean, you're fired, or we're just not going to call you back.
Or just like no communication.
Yeah, no communication. And I mean that I mean, it's, you know, your first real foray as an artist in getting these deals and these publishing deals, or submitting these things. Maybe that's your MIA, you know, maybe that's the version of that for you. And now you're going to work your way to your Sheryl Crow, and then you're going to get to your Miley, and then all of a sudden, there you go. You're there, you know.
I mean, that's the thing that I try and tell myself too, because I think a lot of the insecurities that I deal with are insecurities I put on myself. And like, no one has really said to me. They're just like, you know, I think being a combo type A, type B personality is like a blessing and a curse at the same time. And so you have all these goals, like you're very goal oriented, you have things that you're constantly working towards, but then you're also like this creative spirit, and it's like those two things are constantly trying to find harmony, you know. But I think, that's a great way to approach it, thinking of it like, okay, like maybe this first year was like my MIA experience, and maybe like next year will be the Amos, and then it'll keep like getting better and even better, you know. So that's so true.
So how do you look at the other thing that I definitely wanted to chat with you about, because we were talking about it over dinner the other day, but I thought it was really interesting, was what happens is, I think, when you start looking inside of yourself more, is you start becoming more willing to be yourself, because you know that part of yourself. And one of the things I really wanted to talk about specifically was kind of how you want to portray yourself outside of yourself. And I mean, we talked about social media and branding, especially as a woman. How it's okay to just show you, to be you, and how people want that. So they want to hear that in your music. But music is a metaphor for you. I mean, you're not literally saying, I woke up today and didn't feel great. You know, it's like, but having that side of yourself, I mean, because people want a human, you know, and when you've spent so many years of your life being the Instagram model because you're on stage all the time, that now you're diving into this world of where, you can go there, but you also want to show people a side of you that's going to make you a human, to kind of touch and reach out to your music. So what are your do you feel more comfortable in that skin, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel more comfortable in the sense of like, you know, when I was doing backing vocals, I always kind of like dressed for the gig.
Of course,
you know,
you have to. I mean, that's the job.
So it's like you want to be representative of the job you're doing, and in entertainment that means literally changing like how you look at times. It is nice to be able to just be the version of myself I feel like being. That's really awesome in terms of doing my own stuff. I do struggle with like what to share. in that social media doesn't come like naturally for me. You know, like I know right now I should have taken like a picture of us like doing this and posted it to my Instagram stories because like it looks good that I'm working. But I feel that's something I find really unattractive in this industry. It's like people constantly being like, look at me work. But it's hard because it's like I understand why we do it, because if you're out of sight, out of mind, it's like if you're not showing that you're writing on a regular basis, people think you're not working, so you must not actually be that good because like you're not doing it a lot, you know? And I like to think of it as like I'm doing the work, so I'm too busy to be posting.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Of course.
But, you know, I also struggle with like wanting to slap my face on everything. But then you look at like the freaking numbers, and it's like every time you post a photo of yourself, it performs a lot better on social media. And it's like you want to engage with people and you want to give them the content that they're interested in so that it circles back to your music. But you know, I just find that it's difficult for me to be I'm working on getting better at being who I really am online in the way that I already am like offline, you know, and trying to translate that and be like, you know, my music is an extension of who I am, and I'm goofy. I also care a lot about like what's happening in the world, and that makes me really dark sometimes, and I feel the need to share those things as well. I struggle with depression at times, and so it's like sharing some of those things as well. You know, it's just like there's a lot of different layers, and trying to find again like a harmony in sharing those parts of yourself, because you know that like not just the happy stuff needs to be out in the world. Like other people need to know that it's not just a highlight reel all the time. Is hard, because then it's like, well, you know, then people are like, oh, maybe it's too heavy, or you should just play music, don't talk about the other stuff. And I'm like, so I should just be a one-dimensional human. Cool. You know, so I mean, it has been really awesome to discover like who I am in terms of like what I want to present on the visual side of my music, and I think there's a lot of freedom in being like, well, this is who I am right now. I'm not dressing for a gig. I'm not changing my hair or my clothes or
But that's insanely
whatever.
difficult, because you've done that so much your entire
Yeah.
life. You know, that's a huge transition.
It is, for sure. And there's definitely been like a massive learning curve, and I don't feel like I've really even started to become comfortable with it until like the past few months, honestly. Mostly just because I like give way less fucks right now. I'm just in a place of being like, fuck it, I'm going to release music that I really like. It may not sound like the last thing I released. It may not be amazingly cohesive, but I think it feels good. I think it sounds good, you know, and I'm just going to throw it out into the world, and, you know, hopefully people enjoy it. And, you know, I think like you end up trying to, you know, again, like coming from backing singing world, like you kind of want to know what your role is, and you end up not saying a lot of things because you're like, I don't need to step on these people's toes. Like, I want to keep working. And I think as an artist, I'm like, well, this is me. Like, I'm sharing my voice. I'm sharing my stories. I'm sharing like what's inside of my head. So why would I not conduct myself in that way? Why would I not say what I'm thinking? So, you know, getting to a place where I've been comfortable enough to like even like talk into the camera of my phone has been like, okay, just do it. Like, talk in the way that you talk to your friends. Like, don't do it in this like, hey guys,
how
like,
are you today?
You know, even though I totally start everything with hey guys, but that's also because that's a Connecticut thing and everybody says guys. Yeah, it's like, it's totally, and I'm trying to train myself not to do that, especially when I'm talking to groups that are just women. And I'm like, it's another patriarchal thing I don't need to implement. Like, we are not all guys here. We are girls. Like, what? You know, but Yeah. I mean, it's, just definitely transitioning between, kind of being like different versions of yourself into being a more consistent version of yourself is a really interesting journey that I've buckled myself in for.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. Nobody wants to go. I mean, I understand why people go to social media and they want it to be a lift. They want to find an inspirational quote because.
But most people don't feel good when they're on social media. That's the thing. Like, there've been so many studies that's like you go on social media because you want to escape, but then you end up feeling worse by the time you get off.
Yeah.
And it's like the few times I do find those inspirational quotes, I'm like, okay, let me put a pin in this right here while I'm feeling good, and like step away from it before I start feeling inadequate or dark about the state of the world, or
Yeah, they go for an escape, and the ones that are successful are showing this beautiful, amazing life. The hilarious part is, I'm about to go. I want to do a cross Canada thing, and I'm looking at all these van images of these couples with their dogs, so happy, and I'm just like, well, okay, cool. Well, what's that life really like?
Yeah.
Like, where are you showering? Like, what, how many arguments did you have to, it's that part of it. And to me, I was mostly just looking at them because I love the vans and I wanted to understand how they converted them. But I've got to the point now where it's kind of, I'm over it. Like, I don't want to see that anymore. But
I have a great guy I'm going to tell you about afterwards that you should
sweet.
follow. That's just like a dude in his camper that travels around Canada a lot. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
nice.
think you would like him.
Yeah, sounds like right up my alley. But yeah, I just got bored of it. I'm like, I'm tired of seeing this sexy couple with their shirts off in a bikini with a dog, and I'm like, I'm over it.
Just like
just
jumping
show
off
me your
cliff
van.
faces into like beautiful clear blue waters, like
But we have this thing. Like, here's the thing about that is they're famous for that.
Yeah,
they make money for that. We are not. That's not our thing. Like, what we do well is something that we've worked on for years.
Yeah.
So we have this thing where we don't need to show sadness, or we don't need to show the bad side, because we can put it in the art.
That's true.
You can make a really sad track about how you feel, and you don't need to put your phone and say, hey guys, I feel like crap today.
Yeah.
You can put it in that song, and you can put that out, and that can be your piece. You
Yeah.
can go, listen, I'm showing you a part of me.
Yeah.
That's good. And then you can be happy to juxtapose that, and now you have this art that can kind of capture your sadness and your emotions, and you're making it something beautiful.
Totally.
I think that, to me, aside from just genuinely showing your life, I mean, I think there's limits to that and stuff like that, but I think that we have this ability that we can mask our sadness inside of something.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is the future, to have a talent to be genuine. And all these kind of Instagram people that are famous for being good looking, or for doing things that we all want to do, that been creating that FOMO. I think that's going to go away.
I hope so.
I mean, I think it's, I've talked about it on the podcast, like the Bourdain thing that happened. I mean, I don't think that you need to go to social media and say to people, like shout from the rooftops, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
But I think just in my opinion, you need to talk about that with people in general. But if you're so wrapped up in that social media and so wrapped up in that being your outlet, that is so dangerous.
It is really dangerous, because you're still looking for validation.
Exactly.
I think, in a way, or a lot of people are looking for, like, look how honest I'm being. I do feel like it is important that people show that or talk about it in a way, because, again, like, this whole highlight reel thing I think that's also dangerous, because people think that, like, they're not good enough. Like, I had a post a few months ago that I wrote that was like, just talking, I think it just started with like, being a creative person is really fucking hard, or something to that extent. And then I just like talked about, like, in a synopsis of like what my journey has been, and like what my budget is for like music videos and wardrobe and all that stuff. It may look glamorous, but it's like, know that I am like pulling money out of my ass to make this happen. And and then it's like, my sweet mother-in-law texts Matt and is like, is Dani okay? But it's like, people who aren't pursuing that lifestyle have no idea, pursuing like something that they're building from the ground up, have no idea how heavy that can be sometimes. And I don't post it for those people. I post it for other people who are also trying to do something similar, whether they're starting any kind of business, be it like creative or like starting your own accounting firm. Like it's all hard to do things on your own.
Well, no, it's different.
You know?
I mean, I understand. I know you're trying to be diplomatic here, but I'm gonna say that it's harder. And the reason it's harder is because, and you're in one of the most dangerous places that any human being can be in. And that most dangerous place is, and I know I've been there, and I'm getting on the other side of it, is a self-starter who spends the entire day looking inside themselves.
Oh my God, yes.
That is like the most dangerous place you can live. And if you don't accept what's inside of yourself and you're searching for that, and the darkness in there, that is a bad feedback loop to be in.
That's totally true.
A guy that's going to start an accounting, cool, you got an accounting business, good for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're not looking inward to pull out numbers out of your butt.
Totally.
It's just like you're starting a business that has a tangible thing that's happening that people need, that they will come to you.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing, because I need an accountant, you need an accountant, because I don't want to pay attention to that shit.
Yeah.
But I think that when we wake up as self-starters, and we have to muster the strength to look inside, man, that can be dangerous.
Totally. And like I struggle a lot when I start to look internally with like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for self-serving purposes? In that, like, I love nothing more than I love singing. Mm-hmm. Like, singing is my greatest joy, and it has been my longest love, and the thing I have been most committed to in my life. I've never been committed to anything like I've been to singing, and trying to be the best I can be for myself at that. And, next in line would be writing, and trying to be a great writer, and, and feeling like, you're putting music out into the world and it's not spreading in the way that you want it to, makes you feel that much more selfish, because you're like, well, am I doing this for myself if people aren't responding to it? And then, like, should I do something just because it makes me happy? Like, and I feel like, because you have to spend so much time with yourself, focusing on yourself, it can be really easy to become selfish and not be aware of like what your friends or family are going through, or people outside, like in the world, who need real tangible help with things. And you feel like you could be doing more things with your time, and that just is like a real dark place to start circling into. I was listening to Marie Forleo the other day. Mm-hmm. She's a really great, like, inspirational speaker, sort of like Oprah has donned her, like, you are next in line, but she had a great little, like, 5-minute long podcast on this, and someone had wrote into her and was like, I have all this guilt about pursuing my passion because it makes me happy, and I also have the potential for it to be like lucrative in a way, but there's like all this guilt associated with it, and I'm trying to navigate that. And she brought up such a great point. She was saying that, like, just because it's not like you being happy pursuing the thing that you're pursuing means other people are suffering. Like, if what it meant was for you to be happy, 5 other people had to suffer, then by all means don't do that thing, but it's not like you're damaging anyone else. And the better version of yourself you can be, and if that means pursuing something that you love and that makes you happy, you can help more people that way. Mm-hmm. And that's been something I've been trying to just kind of mull over and see how I can actually enact that, but it is so easy to just, wake up every day and be like, okay, how am I going to make something today? Or what am I going to draw on? And like going inward and just what that leads to. And, I think having people like her in the world, like, sharing messages like that has helped me at least kind of grapple with doing this for a living. or trying to make a living.
Well, I think that, I mean, when you're building a brand, 'cause that's what you're doing. I mean, you're building a brand, and you're building a brand that's emotional, and that's a tough brand to build.
And it's not a tangible product either. Like we've talked about that book, Big Magic, that Elizabeth Gilbert wrote, and she was talking about like no one owes you anything. Like creativity doesn't owe you anything. You're making a product that people at the end of the day don't actually need.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, and need more. But do need. You know, but they don't know they need it until they see it or hear it or hold it. You know, so. It's like you're making something in hopes that someone finds it and thinks that they need it, you know?
And it's crazy to think that,
it's a terrible business plan.
Well, it's a different business plan. It's like if if you're a toilet paper maker, you know that people need toilet paper. Yeah. That's just straight up. Like that's going to be something that people need. And you know that on the back end, everything's going to be fine, just like an accountant, you know? But as the belief in the system, you have to believe so much in yourself to think that what you're doing is going to be needed. That's a crazy thing. And I think the thing about it is that if I mean, you know, there's always artists out there that are doing it for different reasons. We're all doing it for different reasons, but I tend to associate people with people that are doing it for the right reasons, as in they're doing it for themselves. And if it helps somebody or reaches somebody and it matters to them, I think that's the way. Yeah. But there are people out there that are doing it for money. There are people out there that are doing it just for self-serving. And if that's what they need, that's fine. But I don't really associate with a lot of those kind of people. So I don't have those kind of conversations. But the people that I respect the most are the ones that are doing it and they're self-starting and getting to that place. But there's a thing that exists in building that brand that this guy Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about, is this brand builder guy who has no talents other than his voice and his speaking and him talking. Like he has talents in the business world, like he started a wine company with his family and all that stuff. That's the hilarious thing, is like we actually have tangible like it's not tangible, but I mean, you can sit at a piano and sing a song. Like you can do something. Yeah. Like a lot of these people that are making all this money and building these brands, they can't do anything other than talk. Yeah, and that's true. And it's like we have this skill above and beyond that. Not only can we talk, but we can go above and beyond, and we can actually create something. Yeah, with skills that we've honed for years. I mean, we're so freaking lucky to have that. Yeah. People would kill for that. I mean, how many people have you met that are like, I would love to sing, or I'd love to whatever. It's like it's to be able to look inside of our soul and find a way to voice that. I mean, what a gift. I mean, it's a lot of, that's a, you know, with, what is it, with great something comes great responsibility, whatever that quote is, but with great power comes great responsibility. But I think the thing that is going to win in the end, to me, is being able to build that brand and have that belief in yourself, but also be an empathetic human being. Yeah. That's going to understand that what you're doing is, like she says in Big Magic, it's coming to you, you know, and you have to be open to it, and you have to be doing it for the reasons of, like, you have to look inside yourself and be empathetic to yourself. Yes. And I did a podcast with Dustin Ransom about that, where he's like, he would say, he would be talking about creating something, and he said he would have inner dialogue with himself as a producer. So he is producing his creative thing. Production is what he does the best. So he would have inner dialogue. It was Alex, and Dustin said the same thing. Alex Wong said the same thing. Alex, he's like, because, you know, he's a brilliant producer. Yeah. And see, he said, what I had to do was I had to create something and then go for a walk and come back and then put on a producer hat and like produce it from that place, that part of my being. Now, if you go further, it's like, if you can be empathetic to your ideas and understand that those are your ideas and you love them and you want to bring them to the light, that's it. And if you do it from that place, it doesn't matter on the backside, because it's going to matter to somebody. Yeah. And I think about that in a lot of ways. And I brought this up several times. Even like I talked about starting this podcast, anything that you have to take a risk where you're perceived on the other end about whether it's going to be positive or negative is scary. Yeah. And every time that I've made a decision that I believed was the right decision for me, be it, I had this conversation last night with somebody. I mean, in the mid 2000s, or the early 2000s, I was a jazz saxophone player, and I had a path to be that, and that's what I always was on the path for. And then I started writing songs, and I had friends that literally would disown me because I did that, and they're like, "What are you doing, you idiot? Like, you're a saxophone player." And then
the jazz world can be like
the jazz
that, BT dubs.
Yeah. And then 10 years later, these guys are writing songs.
Yep,
but
yeah.
I'm 10 years ahead because
Yeah.
I've practiced that,
Yeah,
you know. And then all of a
yeah.
sudden now I'm making money doing it, and but they're trying to play catch up because they've been playing the giant steps in the thing, and you see that, but that was a part of the soul. So anytime that I've made that decision, and it's always worked out. And whenever I go to a place where I'm following somebody, it's never worked out.
Yep.
And the podcast is a
true.
good example, and the most recent example, where I was worried about how this was going to be perceived by showing this part of myself. And I cannot tell you, I literally daily, I get messages from people where they say, "Wow, you're speaking to my soul," or "Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, you've helped me do this
So
today."
awesome.
And I think that that's worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and that was me pulling back. And it's hilarious is some of the people that I was concerned about were the first ones to say, "Wow, that's really cool, Tyler.
Yeah.
I mean, I really love this one. I really love this." And it started simple, and I didn't care. But then you go to your podcast thing, your downloads, and you look at where it's happening. Like, there's people in Japan, there's people in like all over Asia, like China, and they're like listening to this, and there's people in the UK, and like, who are these people?
Yeah.
I don't know. But the thing about it that's tough, and you have to remind yourself every morning, is when you sit down to do something, is you don't know unless they reach out to you.
Yeah.
But they're doing it. They're
Yeah.
hearing it. They're paying attention. It's amazing how much people pay attention.
Totally.
They may not engage with it at that point, but if they really like it, they'll eventually engage in it. And you have to, it's almost like you have to sell it to them that this is what the path you're really on.
Yeah.
Because I could have done 3 podcasts and then never done one again because nobody was like reaching out saying, "This really touched me." But if you're like, "I love this, I believe that it's going to be cool and that
Yeah.
it's going to matter," and just balls to the wall, "I'm going to build this brand, I'm going to do it," people start coming on board.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're at, where you're like, I'm finding something that's inside of myself that I want to share. Doesn't matter if people care at this point, it's what I'm sharing. And if I do it from a genuine, authentic version of my being, that people will connect with that.
Totally,
you know?
totally. And I think authenticity is something that I think is one of the most important qualities anybody could have, you know, and I think that's definitely something I try and do, or I've been like trying to do.
But it's a muscle.
Stuff. It is
you
a
know?
muscle for sure, and that like being comfortable with your authenticity and like letting people see and you know, sharing what is authentic to you in hopes that, you know, people are like, people won't be like, "Oh my God, that's like so not what I identify with," you know? And if it's not, then it's not, and being
that's the
okay
thing.
with that.
You
cool.
said it earlier, like the not giving a fuck
Totally.
thing. It's like, just don't care.
It's really
you know?
interesting because, you know, like coming off the road with Miley, I was closing in on maybe like 10,000 like Instagram followers. And I'm down to like 7-something thousand now because like whenever I post something about my music, people who followed me because I was with her are like, "Oh, she's not like associated with Miley anymore," and they unfollow me. But then I'll get like a few other followers who maybe like heard my music somewhere else and are following me because of my music, and like reminding myself that numbers are just whatever, and that having people pay attention to what you're doing because they're interested in what you're doing and not because of what you're associated with is really amazing, you know, and like trying to keep that in mind.
And just look at that as a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Miley's popularity got you, if she gets you 1,000 of the 10,000 that come to
Totally.
your stuff, then that's enough.
Total.
you know?
I mean, yeah, I think I had like 400 followers before I started working with her.
Wow.
And then, you know, her fans are just so loyal,
Yeah.
and they're just like, we just want to know like everything that's like near her, you know, and yeah, I mean, that I am super grateful that many people have actually stayed on. I mean, it's been 4 years since that tour, and like that many people have still stuck around too. So instead of focusing on the like 2,000 or 3,000 that are like up, you're not really doing that anymore. It's like there's still like 7,000 people who are still like invested.
It's a mental shift. It's a mental shift. It's like we talked about, earlier, where all these exterior things that matter. I look at a guy. He cares. He cares about what people think a lot. I look at a guy like John Mayer and I watch his Instagram and I watch his stuff. That guy to me is just bored with his life because he's kind of like in a place where he's got everything that he needs, and he's testing things. He's trying things. But when he was writing like the Continuum record and then the next one where he ripped off Neil Young cover in the hat, Queens of California record, like those records, to me, those are masterpieces. To me, Continuum is a masterpiece, and it was like you didn't really see him kind of in the public doing stuff. Like that was his move from, okay, I'm not a kid playing colleges anymore, so like I'm gonna really do this and dive into myself. Yeah. And he wasn't really engaged in that social media world. Now he's super engaged in it because he's bored. Again, he's looking for things because he's super famous. And
it's also become like way more relevant too than it was when those records came out. But
true, yeah, social media wasn't super popular back then. But I think it's interesting that you have to make that transition from the exterior to the interior to be able to really find that where you care less about followers and you care less about stories, but it's hammered at us all day long.
Totally. I mean, I definitely have friends who it's like, that is such a thing for them. Like they're so consumed with like how many followers they have on what platform. And it's like, do you know any of these people? Like why? It's not like your mom like isn't following you because she thinks you're terrible, or it's like that would be more insulting, I think, than like strangers you've never met before like not following you or like unfollowing you or something. But yeah, it is like hammered in your face all the time, and it's like it can sometimes determine what opportunities you get or don't get.
I was going to say, labels pay attention if that's what you want, and that's but I think you should focus on your music too.
I think so too, because that's the thing. I did this little like speaking thing at this music school a couple weeks ago, and it was mostly like teenage girls, and they were like, "How do you meet music industry people?" And I was like, "Here's the thing, you're like 15. Get good at what you do. You're not there yet. Like, I'm not saying you're terrible. I'm just saying like you've got a long way to go before people are going to pay attention to what you're doing. And the thing is, like, if you are doing something that's interesting, the right people will find you, and they just kept asking, like, how do you meet these people? And I'm like, you will not meet them. You won't meet them. Like, you are just going to end up becoming friends with a lot of different people. Those people will know people. And then when you're doing something that warrants ears, word will start spreading, and then they will find you, and that's a thing. And it's whether you're 15 or whether you're 35, it's like if you are trying the best you can to make something that's quality, then the numbers will hopefully follow, the ears will follow, the buzz, whatever, will follow. And but it's definitely so easy to get caught up in. And
it's never more easy than now.
Totally.
To put that stuff out there. Like a 15-year-old kid can start a YouTube channel and start singing into a camera.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying to them too. I was like, kind of just like get to know yourself. Like start, keep writing songs. It's amazing. I wasn't really writing like real songs when I was 15, and like the fact that you're already doing that, do that. Throw them up on YouTube, throw them up on your Instagram stories, like, and just see what people respond to, and like see what works, see what doesn't work. And it's so easy to do that. Like, and just like, what colors do you like? Like how do you think you can incorporate those into like the visual side of your music? Like, what do you think your music looks like? And like just finding things that you like and enjoy that you can, incorporate into what you're creating, instead of focusing so early on like the hustle side of it. Like you'll have to do that at some point, but like right now you have no financial responsibilities, you have all the time in the world.
Exactly, yeah.
And so all you really need to do is just focus on becoming a better writer, better singer, better guitar player, better piano player, whatever, better producer. Like just like appreciate this time that you have to do that, you know? Because yeah, all that other stuff will hopefully follow. I mean, I know like for me, it's like when I was finally doing stuff that, you know, was a little more pro sounding, that's when like my management happened. And then like, that's when my publisher happened. And like, you know, whether or not those relationships end up being like long-term or whatever, it's like, it does prove the point that like, people will come to you and it will just grow into whatever it's supposed to grow into.
Yeah, the product has become the only thing that matters, you know, and people just get caught up in all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are getting famous for nothing. People are getting famous for no reason. There's no product there, you know. But they're manipulating the system, but they're incredibly, like, I mean, I'm not a Kardashian fan, but with the mother or whatever, she that's a masterful.
She's a freaking mogul.
Exactly.
I mean, like, that woman, like, there's brains that have gone into developing that. You know? I mean, it's insane.
And whether you agree that that's the way that the world should work, or whether they're a positive or negative influence on the world, I mean, she's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
She saw an opportunity and she went for it.
Yeah, and they're the ones out there making the money, so doing the thing that they want to be doing. So it's like,
yeah, if they want to put on the clothes and do the paparazzi, and that's their thing. That's their thing, you know. And whether you choose to pay attention to it is your option. That's the beauty of the world.
Totally.
You don't turn on the news, and that's your only source of whatever. You can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You can get anything from anywhere. And the other thing about when you said just write songs, put them up, that's the other thing that's beautiful. Is if you put a song up and it doesn't get a reaction, write another one.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to hold on to that and be like, oh my God, you wrote that song? I'm not going to listen anymore.
That was another thing I was talking with these girls about too, is that I think when you're first starting out, you're really precious about your songs because you haven't written that many, right? But then, you know, like someday you might get into a contract where like people are going to hold on to those songs. You might not be able to get them back. And you think, oh my God, like that was like my peak songwriting. But then it's like, no, there's more where that came from. And like anything, the longer you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And you're like, cool, keep those songs. Do whatever you want with them. I have better stuff that's coming, you know? So like not to get so married to like, I can only put this thing out when it's like perfectly polished. No, just
put it out.
Yeah.
Put it out.
Share it.
And you have this beautiful thing that happens called life that's going to push you in so many beautiful directions. Completely. So that when you're 15, you're not going to write a song when you're 25 that's the same as when you're 15. So capture when you're 15.
Totally.
You know? I mean, you know, all the things that happen when you're 15, all the firsts, like boyfriends and all these things. It's like that's what Taylor Swift capitalized on, that innocence or whatever. I mean, when you get to 25, that's going to be gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So capture it in that moment. Write about what matters to you in that time. Don't try to write like you're older or younger than you are. And then move along. And then you're going to go through life and you're never going to run out of material. Totally. As long as you're pulling it from the right place.
Totally. That's true. And I think that spans different ages too, because it's like, you know, being 33 and mostly operating in the pop world, like I'm kind of old for pop. So, you know, it's like
embrace that.
Totally. And it's like, you know, I'm trying, instead of being intimidated by it and being like, well, I'm not like on the dating scene anymore. I'm not like going through some of these struggles that people who are like even 5 years younger than me are still going through. Like, but I can make up a story about it now, and hopefully it's not as painful for me because it's not like real. It's like it's an exercise and like trying something, you know, but also bringing like a different slant to stuff because I'm older, and hopefully adding like a layer of depth to things because, you know, I've experienced some things, you know, that I hadn't experienced in my late 20s even, you know, now. So, you know, like not being intimidated by whatever age you are, and just, you know, writing what needs to come out at that time. Yeah. For sure.
Well, speaking of that, tell me, so that August, is it the best parts? Is that the single?
No, that was I actually have been thinking about re-releasing that though.
Oh, really? Because I couldn't find that anywhere. Yeah.
We wiped the internet.
You did not.
I know. Well, I mean, that's just like, just to be totally honest, it's like a thing that a lot of people do, and it's like you're rebranding, whatever.
Yeah.
Like we switched from Dani Elliott to Dani, which is like Daani, which was like a decision on like my management and my, like we decided that together, and the music just sounds really different to what all of my older stuff sounded like. And so we just didn't want it to be confusing for people to like happen on that stuff and be like, well, wait, this is the same person, So we decided to kind of take all of the pre-Dani stuff down. So anyway, Best Part may have a life just yet. We'll see if it comes back out. But that was an EP I put out in 2015 that Matt fully produced.
Yeah, okay.
But this, and then I put out another EP called Good Side in May, and that was like a 5-song EP. And then I put out another single last month called All of a Sudden. That I wrote with this really awesome artist, Kid the Band, and his name's Devin Guisson, but he is like the lead singer of Kid the Band, and Matt produced that as well. And then this new song I wrote with this artist producer Verscotzi in LA, and that's got like a different vibe to. I feel like they're all kind of in the same family, but they're definitely different looks as well. This one's called Easy Feeling, and that's coming out in like late August. Yeah. So it depends on like, just real talk, like, okay, how much lead time does my distributor need to like pitch to playlists properly? Because like if your numbers suck, no one cares about you, like all of that bullshit. But it's it's just like stuff you have to consider, and like what will work best. And
let them worry about it.
Yeah. So my publisher is like helping me with that, kind of, navigate all of that stuff, which is nice to have help. For sure. So
and where do people? Is it? What is your Instagram now that you changed the name?
The Instagram is Dani Official, Daani Official. I think Twitter is like Dani Tweets. Rarely. It should say rarely. I mostly just like retweet stuff from either like reviews or politically charged like tweets. Like Facebook I think is like Dani Music Official. So yeah, anything that's Daani. Although I think there's actually like a DJ in Europe somewhere who also goes by Dani too. Okay. So that's
not you.
But that's not me. There's a very clear distinction. You'll be able to tell we're different.
No
people.
offense to that guy, but that's not you.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed chatting. Thank you for this.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's I always love talking with you. We get to like nitty gritty stuff, and I love that. It
takes two to tango.
Right?
You gotta bring it back.
Deep. Yeah.
Well, yeah, good luck with the release, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Watch this heavy heart of mine turn this water into wine. Light your match and let it glow, so I know my way home. One more game of tic-tac-toe. You be X and I'll be you. Fall in love like dominoes, then I'll come back home. If I can't find you, go get lost in the simple things. Might I remind you, chase your tail and dream those dreams. One more glass to set me free. Forget right past what's in front of me. I'll be fine, they tell me so, 'cause I know my way home.